Ashleydawn. So, today I want to talk about your finger. Take your finger out and look at it. Pretty cool finger, right? You can point at stuff. You can point at people, right? And sometimes when you point at people, you think it makes you feel better, but it really don't. I want to talk to you today about your finger and how, when it's pointing at others, it's not doing what it was designed to do. God has not called us to pick out the specks in other people's eyes. God has not called us to point fingers, to call names, to lord over other people, to govern over our friends, or to govern over our neighbor, right? He can do that by himself. We don't need to help him. God has given us the ability to take our fingers and, instead of pointing at everybody else, which a lot of times we do that because we think it's going to make us feel better, right? If we point out their flaws, well, then ours won't look so bad. If we point out the things in their life that are going wrong, well, then I'll feel better about mine. Oh, look how messy their house is. I don't feel so bad for not cleaning mine. Oh, look their car's not new, so I don't feel bad about not having a new car. Why are we measuring ourselves with each other? Like, why are we walking around with a tape measure and every person we see, oh, let me see. Nope, don't measure up. What? God doesn't call us to do that. He doesn't call us to do that with ourselves, but a lot of us do. A lot of us, we wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is we get a tape measure out. I don't measure up. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. Lies. They're all lies. You are made in the image of God. God created you for a purpose, with purpose. He didn't make a mistake. I know there's people probably in your life that have at maybe one point told you you're a mistake, or there's something wrong with you, or you're not enough, but those were lies. And a lot of times the people that say those things are struggling with those themselves, because somebody in their life has said that to themselves, to them, and they want to take that and put it on you, right? It's like a game of hot potato. I don't want it to burn me, so I'm going to throw it at you. Somebody said something mean to me. I don't want it to burn me, or I don't want it to affect me. So instead of dealing with it and throwing it in the trash like I could do, I'm going to throw it at you. I'm going to take this pain that I'm feeling and I'm going to throw it at you. I'm going to take this rejection that I'm feeling and I'm going to reject you. I'm going to take this bad name that was called to me and I'm going to call it to you. A lot of people do that. And it doesn't glorify God. And it doesn't help you. It actually hurts you. Because God has created us for love, with love, and from love, right? Out of God's love, He created us for love, to love each other, to love Him and to love each other. Love God, love people. I tell my students all the time, love God and love people. And we make little songs. Sometimes we make little raps because it's funny. And they love when I do funny stuff, which is on a daily basis because I'm a goofball. Anyway, so we need to love God first and foremost. How do we love God? We get to know Him. How do we get to know Him? We spend time with Him. How do we spend time with Him? Read our Bible, worship, spend time with other godly people that'll encourage us and sharpen us and strengthen us. Hello. So we spend time with God. We get to know His heart. We get to know His love. And then we take that love and then we pour it out on all the people around us. But if we don't know God's love, we won't be able to love His creation the way He's created us to love. And when we operate in hate, when we operate in lust, when we operate in things that God has not called us to operate in, we really grieve the Holy Spirit and we grieve our own spirits because we weren't created for that. It's like trying to use a wrench and it don't fit. Have you ever tried to use a wrench and it don't fit? Or a socket and it don't fit? It's the most frustrating thing in the world. And you go through all the little sockets and you can't find the one that fits, so you try to use the closest one and it just drives you bananas. That's like your life when it's not operating in love. It's not going to fit. We were created for love. We were created to love. And when we love, we'll be filled up. When we love others, when we serve others, when we volunteer, when we help. Have you ever helped anybody? Have you ever donated anything? Have you ever volunteered somewhere? It makes you feel good. And you don't necessarily do it for the reason to make you feel good. One of the things that I'm very passionate about, I love people with special needs. It's a passion of mine to see all of God's creation with all of God's love. And Tim Tebow has a Night to Shine program for people with special needs, and it's really encouraging and loving, and it's amazing. Anyway, I work with him every year, with his organization every year, and it's the week of Valentine's Day. It's normally that Friday, and you go wanting to help and wanting to just cheer people on and let them know how special they are and let them know how loved they are, but you leave being so filled up because you experience the love of God. It's so easy for us to look at people that maybe don't look the same as us and to judge them because we don't understand, right? It's easier to judge than to understand. Understanding actually takes effort on our part. Judging doesn't. And so when you understand different people and maybe things that they've overcome. I have a friend who was born without legs, and I'm with her a lot, and people will judge her. People will say really unkind things without understanding, for one, she doesn't need legs because God has given her a Spitfire spirit and strength, and He has built her in such a way that legs are not necessary. They're not. She does more without legs than she would do with them. She's getting ready to go to the Olympics. So when people judge her and they're like, oh, she doesn't have legs. Okay, she doesn't need them. That's like saying, oh, I don't have blonde hair. Well, I don't need blonde hair. Granted, hair and legs are different, but you get my point. You get my point. So, with all that to say, it's easier to judge people than to understand them. If someone would take the time and say, hey, Emma, how is it not having legs? She would tell you, and she'd say, it's awesome because I get to do things that people count me out. She wrote an amazing article. She was interviewed, an amazing article. And if you are interested, I'll put the link down below so you can read it. Amazing article. And behind Beyond the Gates, it's an amazing Christian publication in Southwest Florida. It's awesome, very encouraging. If you reach out to them, I'm sure you could subscribe and they'll send you a copy to your house. Amazing, 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 amazing. I love that magazine. And so she did an article in there, and she talks about the obstacles she's overcome and how people have really counted her out and people really haven't given her a chance. But every single time she amazes them. And she's one of the most loving people you'll meet. But a lot of times people judge her. It's easier to judge than understand. It's easier to point fingers at other people. You see a mom in a grocery store and her kids are going bananas, right? They're screaming, they're throwing stuff, and you're, I would never. Really? Do you have kids? Probably not, because guess what? She's doing the best she can. Maybe go help her. Maybe go ask her if there's anything you could do for her. Could you imagine what our world would be if we looked at people that are struggling and tried to help them? Could you believe that? Like, if we tried to help people that are struggling? Like, wow, that would really be a crazy world. If instead of making fun of someone who looks different, we would just love them and accept them the way they are. Instead of judging people based on the size of their body parts, we would look at their heart and see their character and see who God created them to be. That's crazy, right? Like, who would do that? Oh my goodness. Or here's one. Buckle up. Are you guys buckled? Because this is a hard one. If we took our finger out and instead of pointing, isn't that an ugly face? Screenshot that. That's ugly. That's an ugly face. Not that my face is ugly. My face is beautiful. God made it. But that look, it's ugly. And that's what you're doing when you're judging others. It's sour. It's nasty. You want to spit it out. Ugh. I do love sour stuff, but I don't love sour people. So that point, no, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help you. You don't look pretty when you do that. You don't look handsome when you do that. Your heart doesn't look pretty. I teach my students all the time. An ugly heart looks like a rock. It's hard and it's ugly. But a loving heart is happy. It's happy. It's a happy heart. It's happy. So take your finger out. Okay? And instead of pointing it at somebody, point it at yourself. What am I doing? How am I showing God's love? How am I making God's love known? How am I making the world around me a better place? How am I making my friends better people? How am I encouraging my coworkers? How am I helping my parents? How am I leading the next generation that's going to come up after me? How am I taking care of the things that God has given to me? Because everything we have has been given to us on loan. It's not ours, it's from God. Are we taking care of things? Or are we trashing things? Are we stealing? Are we lying? Are we cheating? Are we ruining what God has given us? Are we abusing ourselves or abusing others? Are we polluting and poisoning our bodies, our temples? What are we doing? What am I doing? How am I changing the world? How am I changing my family? Do they know God's love based on the things that I say and do? Do my coworkers know God's love based on the things that I say and do? Do the people I'm driving on the highway with know God's love by how kind and courteous I am? Do the people at the supermarket know how loving God is because of the love that I'm showing them? When people look at me and they see a cross around my neck, does my life prove God's love? When they see a sticker on my car, does my driving prove God's love? When they see me at a concert, is the way that I'm acting different from the way that they see me at church? When they see me at a restaurant or a bar, is the way that I'm acting different from the way that I'm acting around my parents or my pastor? These are questions we need to ask ourselves. If the world's kindness depended on me, what would it look like? Am I being generous? Am I being kind? What am I doing? Am I hoarding? Am I keeping everything that you've given me, or am I sharing it with the people around me? What am I doing? Because it's so easy to point fingers and to put blame on other people. Well, this would be better if that person did this. Well, it would probably be better if you did something too. What can you do? How can you help the situation? How can you help that person that's struggling? Maybe you don't have money and you're like, well, kind of struggling myself. You could pray for them. You could encourage them. You could write them a letter of encouragement. You could bless them. You could do something nice for them. You don't always have to have money to bless somebody. You don't always have to give them a tangible thing or material possession to bless somebody. You can bless them with your words. You can bless them with your prayers. You can bless them with the Word of God. There are so many ways that you can bless someone that don't include money. But a lot of times we look at it and we're not looking to help somebody. We're just looking for an excuse not to help them. Right? Oh, well, I'm running late. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I don't want to impose. Oh, listen, ask every day when you wake up, ask God to use you to be a miracle in somebody else's life. Could you imagine if we all did that? If we all asked God, use me to be a miracle in somebody's life today. Use me, Lord. Use me to bless someone. Use me to help someone who's struggling. Speak your word through me. Use me to encourage somebody that's ready to give up on life. Not that it's anything that I have or anything that I'm doing, but I want to be a vessel, right? Like a cup. A cup is used to hold water. Well, I want to be used to hold the presence of God. And then I want God to use me to pour it out to the people around me. Hold on, y'all. I want God to use me as a cup, an empty cup, that He is going to pour His love into. I'm going to hold His love, and then when I see someone who's in need of His love, which is everyone that you could possibly ever see, I'm going to pour some out. And I'm going to keep pouring it out, and I'm going to keep pointing it to God so He can refill it. And that's another thing. Who are you pointing your cup to? Are you pointing it to a guy? Are you pointing it to a girl? Are you pointing it to your job? Are you pointing it to your bank account? Where are you pointing your cup? What are you holding inside? I want to point my cup straight up to God so that He is the only one that fills it. And then after He fills it, I want what He fills it with to overflow to everyone around me. I want every person that comes into contact with me to be able to say that they experienced the love of God by just being around me. Because I was an empty cup that God filled up with His love, and then I poured it out on all the people around me. I don't want anyone to say, oh, that Ashleydawn, oh, she's terrible. I hate being around her. She's so negative. She's mean. She's judgmental. She's always putting people down. I don't want to be her. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be critical of others. I don't want that. I don't want that. And I'm not perfect. I'm sure some days I'm like that. I pray that I'm not. But every day I want to be an empty cup that God uses to pour His love into. And then that love is then poured out on people around me. And it's not easy, right? But it's worth it. I want to every day wake up, and I try to, for the most part, and say, Ashleydawn, what are you doing? You get to make an impact in the world around you today. What impact are you going to make? Have you ever tried pointing at yourself, right? It makes you feel uncomfortable. I don't know about you, but it makes me feel uncomfortable when I have a finger pointing at my face, even if it's my own. And that reminds me, nobody wants my finger in their face. Do I have opinions? Yes. Do I have advice that I'd like to give out to lots of people? Yes. They don't ask for it, so I don't give it. But I'm not God. There's not nail prints on my hands. I'm not God. I can't save anyone. But I can take someone's hand and put their hand in the hand of God by the way that I live my life, by the love that they see from me. Could you imagine if every Christian, every Christ follower showed God's love? Do you think that anyone would be wanting to say things against God? No. That's the way it's supposed to be. People are supposed to look at Christians, Christ followers, and say, wow, they're the most loving people I've ever met. Why are they the most loving people I've ever met? Because they're filled up with God's love. The problem is there's so many people walking around wanting to wear the membership jacket that says I'm a Christian, but not actually wanting to be one. Not actually submitting their life to God. Not actually humbling themselves before God. So you got a lot of people wearing membership jackets that say Christian, but not many of them actually are. I think about like a football team, right? There's a bunch of people that want to have a Letterman jacket, but how many people are ready to show up for 2-a-days? How many people are ready to show up for practice? How many people are ready to show up for weight conditioning? Not many. How many people are wanting to go away to football camp and spend the whole summer working? Not many. How many people are willing to compete at the level that it takes? Not many. Everyone wants the trophy, but nobody wants to actually run the race. They want the easy way out, right? A lot of people, and this will step on some people's toes, a lot of people want a fancy ring on their little finger, but they don't want to do the work to have a marriage. A ring on your finger don't make you married. It's a ring on your finger. Especially if it don't matter. You can have a $20,000 ring on your finger that don't mean nothing because it doesn't represent a commitment and a covenant. The reason rings were given in the Bible was it represented a covenant and a commitment, a holy commitment. If you're not willing to make a holy commitment with another person, I don't care how expensive your ring is. It ain't worth nothing. So many people want to wear the Letterman jacket, but they don't want to do the work. They want the trophy, but they don't want to win the race. race. They want something for nothing. They want the reward, but they don't want to do the work. The Bible talks a lot about the ants. The Bible also talks about if you're lazy and you don't work, you won't eat. But I just look at my own life. It takes work to have something good. I look at my mom and daddy, married a long time, 30 some years, together 40 some years. And I look at their lives. It took a lot of work. Their marriage took a lot of work. The rings on their hand, my daddy, his ring was tattooed. And my mom's, I think the diamond fell out probably, I don't even know how long. But that ring is the most precious thing to her. Wouldn't mean nothing to nobody. There's not even enough gold on it to melt. But it means everything to her. Not because of the value financially, but because the value spiritually, the value emotionally. I don't want a big old fancy ring on my finger that don't mean nothing. I've had that. At one point in my life, I had a $20,000 ring on my finger, and I promise you it didn't mean anything. Why did it not mean anything? Because the guy that put it there, he wanted a ring, and he wanted a wife, and he didn't want to be committed. He didn't want to be honest. He didn't want to have integrity. And he wanted to go out with all these different girls and do all these different things. He didn't care about that ring. So it didn't matter how fancy it was. It didn't matter how nice it was. It didn't mean anything. My dad proposed with the top of a Pepsi can back in the day. The tops looked like a little ring. That's what he proposed with. And my mom still has it. Because for her, it wasn't about the value financially. It was about what it represented. When you look at your life, what does it represent? Does it represent God's love? Does it? I'm the type of girl, and I know I'm different, and that's fine. I don't try to be nothing that I'm not. I don't care about money. I never have. I've never had it, so can't miss it. I don't care about fancy rings. I don't care about the fluff, right? The show. I care about hearts. I'm a very sentimental person. I care about the heart. I care about the commitment. Where is your heart? Who are you committed to? Are you committed to God? That's something you got to ask yourself. When you take your finger out, you point it to yourself, you say, who am I representing? Who am I showing? Like if somebody looked at my life, what would they see? What would they say about my life? Would they say that I represent God? Would they say that I show His love? That's questions I ask myself, because I don't want to do one thing that doesn't represent God. I don't want anyone to meet me and be like, God, I love you, but your followers are crazy. Your followers are mean. Your followers are judgmental. They're critical. God can convict people. We don't have to. God can do the hard work. We don't have to. If we would just live our lives, point our finger at ourselves, and say, God, use me for your glory. Use me to tell your story of how you so loved the world that you would stop at nothing to redeem it. What are you doing? What does your life say about you? This life is so much more than us, y'all. It's so than the fancy clothes we wear, than the things we put in our hair. Like, I like to dress up and I like to be pretty. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more than that. God has big, big plans for us. And so often, we're so distracted by the flashy things of this world that we can't see that the most meaningful, the greatest treasure in our life is in the moments that everybody else overlooks. It's in the places that everybody else overlooks. That's where the good stuff is. There was a song by Kenny Chesney that I always used to listen to when I was a little girl that I loved. It's called The Good Stuff. And he talks about the things in the world that mattered to him that don't matter anymore. That the only thing that mattered to him was his wife, right? And I look at that and it's such a beautiful picture because we can get so distracted by so many different things and we can miss the forest for the trees. We can miss the good that God's doing in our lives because our focus is somewhere else. Don't let the enemy steal your focus. Don't look in the high and mighty places. Look in the low places. Look in the hidden places. There's buried treasure. But not everybody's going to find it. Take your finger out. Point to yourself. What are you doing? How are you showing God's love to the world around you? That's where the treasure is. I love y'all. And as always, you are seen